be recorded. I try to record these, but it doesn't always work depending on what goes on, what I have going on, because sometimes I go from one class, if you will, into another or a meeting, and it doesn't save. So I don't have all of them, but I do have a few of them. And what I'm trying to do is also set it up so that you have access to it whenever you need it as well. So let me just show you real quick, and then I'll also post the link in the chat for you. Let me hold on just a second. So all of the training that we do, not and again, not all of it, but new agent training, for example, I have a lot of that in YouTube. And like, for example, there's an RPR in here, there's Booge training, there's ZipForms training in here. The last time we did ZipForm training in Corpus, last time I did ZipForm training in Corpus, there were 2 sessions. There was a morning session and an evening session. That's what this one is here. It's back in August. So there's and I haven't tried to divide them up into a new agent training and then regular stuff. I have other things on here as well. So you can go in and take a look at them anytime you want to. It's just right there on YouTube for you. So you have access to that. Anybody have any questions there? And with that being said, I'd also like to encourage you, you should have a YouTube channel set up. And I've shown in the past one of the webinars I had taken, the individual had everything set up exactly the way we've been telling people to set it up, so that you have a series of 3 to 5 minute, 3 being ideal, segments on YouTube for every aspect. So they had the seller side, listing side, if you will, and then they also had the buyer side. And I showed that channel a few, maybe a month or so ago, where the individual had all of these all set up, just to give you an idea of it. And if you don't have that or you didn't see it, I can actually try to pull that back up for you later on as well. But just shoot me a message or a private message in the chat, and I'll grab that afterwards and send it over to you. We're going to go over ZipForms this morning, and this is designed for new agent training. So I just want to touch base on some basic things, and that also might help a few others based on some things that we've seen within the transaction. Whenever you log in, this is the home screen, if you will, that most of you should probably be seeing, unless you have it set up some other way. And you have the option of setting this up whichever way you want to. When you take a look at this, this is a way for you to judge what goes on and what works best for you. And in fact, I tell you what, since the majority of you are from, let me hold on just a second. Log out of this one. Since the majority of you are from Corpus Christi, let me log into that one, so we'll look at exactly what you guys have as well, because there is a little bit of difference. And that's also one of the other items. Sometimes, like yesterday, an agent sent me a message, said, hey, I just submitted an offer, can you take a look at it? And sometimes, depending on what I have going on, sometimes I can do that pretty quick, and sometimes not, depending on what's happening. Because we have three different ZipForms set up. And what I want to do is on this one, this is the one for Corpus Christi. So what the dashboard, that's going to be the main screen that we were just at, for example, and it'll show the activity that's going on. Currently, there's no transactions pending. I cleared some of these out last night, once again. But this, when I was talking about your pipeline, it'll show you what you have going on if everybody uses everything in here. So as we go through this, as we go through this, if you have any questions, please ask. Like, for example, if I don't touch base on it, some of you've been in this before. Lucy, you guys have done this before. If I don't touch base on how to change active depending and all that, yell at me later on. Once we're inside a transaction, we'll do so. Right here, it shows what the sales volume is, what's happening with closed transactions. But that, again, that depends on you doing what needs to be done as well to make that work. And I'll show you that inside. Very first thing I want to touch base on is the profile. If you have any questions, just unmute and jump in. That's probably the best way, or you can hit the chat, but unmuting and just jumping in probably be the easiest. When you go to your profile, it's underneath your photo. Just click on the profile and settings portion of this and make sure that you have things set up the way you want them set up. One of the key items in here would be your email signature. Make sure that you have your email signature set up in here so that every time you send something out through ZipForms, that goes with it, right? You don't need to do anything else with it. You just set it up and it automatically goes to the signature. Will go with it if you set it up that way. All right, but make sure you have that one. That's the very first one right here where it says about me. You have the sign in and security. If you need to reset your password, etc. One of the things last Friday morning I was having problems with logging in, and that ended up being a international issue with Zoom. But I have, on my side, I have a two-factor authentication set up so somebody can't just jump into our account, right? Actually, this is my account, and I have it set up that way so nobody can mess with it. I have a lot of things set up with two-factor authentication, don't usually have problems, but I was having a huge problem with it. And they cleared everything out. We changed passwords, we did everything, and then I got an email from them with the ticket, and they said it was an international one. They were working on it, and I got one late Friday afternoon saying that everything cleared. And if you've used the two-factor authentication, what they do is when you log in, they send you a text, or however you have it set up. I have mine set for text with some numbers, a code to plug in. I got about 10 of those about 6 o'clock at night. So they cleared everything out so you can work with it. The offices, you should have the RE/MAX corporate. And by the way, RMECC, that's the corporate name, but we have the DBA set up with RE/MAX Elite. That RE/MAX Elite is what you should be using on every one of your forms. Just RE/MAX Elite. That's all you need. Some people, and I'm not sure where it's coming from, but some people will put RE/MAX Elite Corpus Christi, RE/MAX Elite Alice, RE/MAX Elite. Yeah, you don't need that. It's just RE/MAX Elite. That's all it is. And then underneath,
I noticed last night, Mac.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed last night that it auto populates that, so you have to go in and change it to RE/MAX Elite.
It does that probably because it pulls it from the templates, and the templates have been changed. When I initially set them up, we did not have that in there, but they and I'm not sure how they got changed. But anyway, if you'll change that in your template, which we'll touch base on here in a second as well. If you'll change it on template, you shouldn't have any more problems with it auto populating, or you can actually clear that out of the auto populate so you don't have a problem. And I can touch base on that as well. On here, this will actually show you when you click on forms, it'll show you what you have access to. Unless you need it, you shouldn't have access to San Antonio, but these are the libraries that are available for this account. You should have Texas Realtors, Texas Real Estate Commission, and RE/MAX Elite forms in here as well. Down on the bottom, for those of you that are new at this, you can adjust your colors of the fields that you see in the contract. I don't mess with that, but I will tell you that ever since the beginning when I first started teaching this, I do like that. I like to have that option. If you have a client who's colorblind, that might be a good thing. Like on my contracts, when I type, it's blue on a gray, and somebody who's colorblind may not be able to see that. And our oldest son is that way. And so that's the only reason I pick up on that one. Products, these are the things that you have available with this account. So we have MLS Coastal Bend. So you can auto populate right from MLS into ZipForm. We have the Digital Link subscription that's a part of it. offer place, which I have not messed with personally. We also have the mobile edition, which I understand some of you are trying to use, and there were some issues with it. In checking that out, what they did was they pulled the Android version off of the Play Store because they're trying to update it. But if you'll go into the website and log in, it should pick it up as a mobile edition. Should work for you that way as well, and still be able to do electronic signatures and etc. It should be back out here within the end of the month. Should be. On the settings for, this is the settings for signatures and other settings that you have in here. Digital link is master, that's provided, it's a part of it. You also have access to DocuSign, which is an NAR benefit. Digital link is a part of what's being offered through ZipLogic's. DocuSign is a separate one. And when I say a benefit from NAR, if NAR drops this, then you would have to pay for DocuSign, but you should not have to pay for anything at this moment, depending on either one of them. One of the things I'd like to draw your attention to is right here where it says Central Zone. When you log into your ZipForm, that should say Central Time Zone on that settings. And if it doesn't, please change that. Everything we do is based on where the property is located, not where the consumer is located. And so in other words, where we are located, Central Time Zone. And you want to change that, because if you don't, you'll see, and I see contracts, 2 or 3 of them a week, where they'll have Central Time Zone, and some of it's not us, it's other people as well. But they'll have one signature will have Central Time Zone, one will have GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. When you look at the dates and the times, it makes it look like they were signed out of whack, unless you understand what the Greenwich Mean Time is and etc. But they, if you just change it, it'll fix all of that, so you don't have any problems with it. We actually had a agent here in Harlingen sign off on a contract, one of my wife's contracts, and it made it look like we had an effective date before the signatures, but it was because the buyer's agent didn't have that set up, for example. The landing screen, how do you want it to set up? If you want it to come in on the transaction list, that's what I use personally. You can use whatever you want. You have a choice here, dashboard, transaction list, whatever you need. You can have that set up. You have your time interval for saving. Time interval for saving. Please check that and make sure you have 5 minutes is the least. But when you first set up ZipForms, you first get into ZipForms, it's usually off. So you have to go in and change that and set it to 5 minutes. It's auto save, right? So if I get up and walk away from my computer and I'm in the middle of a transaction, it's going to automatically save for me. I don't have to worry about that. And back in the day, I lost a couple transactions. I had to start all over because of that. That's why I touched base on it. We have our template set up. We have some other things in here at the bottom that you don't necessarily need to mess with unless you want to on your side. So like link to other transaction accounts. If you were if you're using ZipForms, because all of us in the state of Texas have access to ZipForm. So all of you, for example, have 2 ZipForm accounts. You have this one, which is the brokerage account. And then you also have one that's offered through Texas Realtors, which is a separate account, separate logins, but they're not linked together, right? So, but this will allow me to link them together just for login purposes. Makes it a little easier sometimes. Again, you don't need to mess with that. You have everything in the corporate account, just stay with that one, you should be okay. But if you ever needed to, you could do that. And I use them because I use all the accounts. So in reality, I have 4 different accounts that I mess with. This one is for Corpus Christi. Down here on the home warranty, I have actually clicked on, and I did that. If you guys want to take it off, you can. But enable home warranty integration. and you can select who the provider is that you want in there. Because of what I do, selected Old Republic and threw that in there. So what that does for you is it allows you to have access to them inside the transaction. There's a list of providers on here. You can go through and pick out the ones you want. There's not a bunch of them, right? But it automatically adds it to the side where you can click on it and add it into the transaction or notify them or whatever you need to do. I'll show you that inside here in a second. You also have title integrations, and I have title on here, but I have not selected any. You can go in and select from this list title companies, if they're on this list, title companies that you want to be a part of your primary transactions, right? If you have one favorite title company or two that you use, you can go in and select that and the rep, and it'll show up on the right-hand side for you. So you have access to it all the time. The idea behind this whole thing, and when they started with the digital link and all this other stuff, the whole idea was for me as a buyer's agent to create a transaction where it goes paperless to the buyer. And then from the buyer, if it's set up, you can set it up different ways, but from the buyer to the listing agent to the seller, and back to either the listing agent or myself, and then to the title company. It's all, I mean, it's supposed to be all integrated, but to do that, we have to work together as well, because I have to be able to plug in your seller's name and email address and things like that. And I probably don't have all that, but it can work that way. The same thing when you send signatures out, if it's a form that you have to sign, you can set that digital link signature up where it comes back to you. So the seller signs it or the buyer signs it, and then it comes back to me and I sign it, right? And that's the way, just like effective date and all these other things, that's the way I've always done that. So I haven't had any issues with it. It makes it really easy to work with. Insurance integration, I'm not sure who turned that on. I would not have that on. And in fact, Nina, are you there? Nina, I'm going to turn this off. If you guys want to turn it back on, you can. And I will tell you why is with that young Alfred. I don't know who turned that on, but they actually pull your client's information from ZipForm, and they will contact your client to see if they want insurance. And that was one of the big stinks we had a couple years ago in McAllen, not with our company, but one of the brokers had called me because she was pretty livid about ZipForms. It automatically pulls your contact's information if that's on. And I don't personally like that. Title companies, home warranty companies, yes. Insurance, I just don't mess with them. And then you have notification settings. This page is important to you because you need to set it up so you get identified, or so that you get notified whenever certain things happen. Like, for example, task and checklist. If you're using task and checklist, you want to know about it as soon as it happens, right? So you have an email or an app. And most agents don't have that set up. That's one of the things that was being worked on, but has not been, as far as I know, has not been completed on any of the sites for the agents. We also have send notifications on due dates. So if I set up a task or a checklist, and we've talked about this in some of the advanced training, some of the agents have checklists they use. KB team has a checklist they use, right? They know that if I get a listing, these things need to happen. They could actually set that up as a checklist in here, so they get notified by ZipForm. This needs to be completed, that needs to be completed, and it'll actually filter into the calendar for it, etc. Most of us don't have it set up that way. It's not that complicated. It's a really good tool, but most of us don't use it. Doc inbox, I would say email notifications. You absolutely want to use Doc inbox, and I'll show you one of the ways that can be used here in a little bit as well. And then the transaction email notification, I have those on. I would, anytime there's something going on within a transaction, you want to get notified if there's activity inside that transaction or things coming up. Sharing information whenever you have the share on. If I share a transaction with you, just like the for approval and all that. You want email notification or in-app notification. You set it up on your side. This is the way it's set up for the office, but you can set it up on your side as well. And then you have the broker approval, email signatures, list flash, offer place. Like I said, I haven't messed with any of these. Retention period with ZipForms is longer than need be. Track requires a broker to maintain a record for 4 years. ZipForm keeps it longer than that. I want to say it keeps them for 7 years. And I'll show you where that's at. Any questions about any of these across the top? Setting this up. Anybody? Once you're done with it, make sure you click save so that you have that in there. All right, so if you're a new agent, this is one of the first things you need to do is we will set up your account. Usually, like for Corpus Christi, that's either Carrie or myself. We'll set you up with an account. When we go in to set you up, just so you guys can see what happens with it. I'll take this one, Deborah. Since you're here, so we see this this setup. She has a transaction coordinator, right? And we can go in and view transactions. So for Corpus Christi, Nina, Carrie, or myself can actually go into your transactions or take a look at your transactions. I've done that with agents. Just recently, an agent was stuck, having some problems, couldn't get one of the documents to open up properly. So I went in on this side to go into the transaction. I could see it, so it's in hers. That tells us that it's in her system. Sometimes when you click on it, the document will open up, but you've clicked on 2 or 3 different things at once. And what will happen is it'll get lost in there, so you don't see it. But anytime you have a problem with it, make sure you let us know, and I can do what I can to try to fix that. We can reset your password or any of the other things in here for you, so that you have that information if you need help with it, with anything. But anyway, we can see the forms that you use and other items that are in here as well. Your templates. On the templates, you have 2 of them, a buyer packet and a listing packet. So when you go in as an agent, what you need to do, the very first thing you need to do is click on new right here at the top, right? And set up your templates. So I'm going to set one up real quick just so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's say I want a new listing. And we're going to call it Max Listing Pack. And residential. Right here where it says auto apply is really important because you have do not apply the template to new transactions right here. I don't use that, and I wouldn't recommend that. That's what they used to have all the time. I like auto apply. So anytime I click on new listing, so let me just cancel this one out. So I'm creating a template packet. If I click on in a transaction, this is a template, but in a transaction, if I click on new listing, and I click on residential, I don't know if you guys noticed here in the center it changed. You see right here where it says residential new transactions. There's every time whatever you go for. So anytime I create a new transaction, this template package would be automatically added to it. Allow agents to edit and delete items. So when you open this up, if there's a form in there you don't like, delete it. You don't need to have 20 forms in there. This is put together just as a general base to work from, but you can go in and modify that. And then templates, you can select a template if you want, or you can leave it blank. And what you should do is select a template. Now I left it blank, right? So what do I have in here? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So over here on the left-hand side, if you do this and you end up with nothing on here, you can come over to apply template, and then you decide which one you want. Now, I could have put it in the first part, but I didn't, so that I could show you, you can apply it right here. So now I have the template. This is the template that we set up for you, right? If there's a form in here you don't want, you don't use, you don't care for it. Let's say I want to take out the lead-based paint brochure, just for example. You just click on it, take it out of your template. You don't need it. This is yours. Customize it for you, right? It's your template. And the idea of setting up the template is so that when you go to do a transaction, everything's already filled out based on the way you normally do business. Like, for example, those of you that's been in the business for a while, what do you use as the normal, your normal protection period? Anybody?
30 days.
Okay.
30 days.
All right. And we're not going to get into, well, I'll throw out 30 days is probably the best. But the reason I asked that is because I could set that up in my template, so I never have to put that in there again. The same thing with commission, same thing with anything else, MLS. Am I going to put it in MLS? I want to put all that stuff in here. So here, the other thing when I put these together is I try to put them in the order that I thought they would go in, right? So you have that in here as well. You can move these around if you want to. You can, the way I'm looking at it here, if you don't like this view, you can click over on the line where the little the box on the right where the lines are right there. You can click on that and put them this way if you want. You can click on organize and move them around. So for example, I have information about brokerage services and listing, residential listing there. If I click on organize, I can move those two around and put the listing up front if I want to, and then click on done. So put them in the order that works best for you. The whole idea of having a template is so that it saves you time in the long run, right? That's what we want to do with it. So again, this is just a template. It's max listing packet. This is just mine, just for today, just for the class, right? So when I open up the listing packet, and I go to the listing agreement, oh, done organized. There we go. I go to the listing agreement. This is what you should see. It's already filled out. The areas that, and so I filled this out. I filled this out, and or Carrie, or who used to be with us, Matthew, might have put some information in here. This is yours. You can go in and change this so you can make it whatever you want to. Like, for example, I might take this phone number out and plug my phone number in, right? Because it's my template now. I can make it whatever I want it to be. I'm going to plug my email address in here, because you're customizing it. Over here on the right hand side, I have Remax Elite. I might space that out a little bit. Whoops. I might space that out a little bit and put Mac McFarland on there. I might come down here and put a percentage in here, right? So this is my template. That's all it is. And I'm going to, so I for those of you that have not worked with this, let me throw in some other things. We talked about the protection period, say 30 days, for example. County, I'm going to plug in Cameron County on this one just for the heck of it. Because it already says county, so I don't need to put county on there. Broker will file it. Broker will file this listing with MLS. That's the norm. What is your norm? That's what you're trying to do, right? That's what you want on the template. What do you normally do? This is scheduling companies. The broker may engage the following companies. And we're not going to go through all this and break it down in detail, but I just wanted you to see the template and the way it's set up. And one of the reasons why is to save you time in the long run. So if it was my listing agreement, this is the things that I filled in so far are things that I would have on every listing agreement. And then your information's already on there. If you filled it out correctly, now see, when I typed in my name at the top, then it comes in down at the bottom as well. So, which is one of the reasons why I want you to see this. I'm not the broker, so I don't want my name in there, right? So all I need is like this. That's it. That's your template. And then you make sure you click on save, or it'll auto save for you if you haven't done that. And now I'm going to go back to, now we're just inside the template. So everything that I filled out should carry over to all the other documents. And so this is your template. You can fill it out the way you need it filled out. So you don't have any problems with that. Anybody have any questions about this? So let me share one other item about the template. If I was you, I'm inside my template. This is the listing package inside the template. I'm going to create a folder here that's going to say maybe initial paperwork. I'm going to create another folder that's going to say offers. And then I'm going to create another folder. It's going to say funding. So now this is inside my template. It's inside the template. And these documents get saved. All these items get saved. I don't need to move anything over. This is my basic, right? So I'm ready to go there. And the reason I create the folders is because you want those on the other side. When you go to parties, if you go to parties on the template, it should have your information along with the brokerage information. Here's where the checklist should go. If you're going to use a checklist, which for some people it makes it a little easier for you if you're working as a team, it adds a little bit to it. So somebody has done some work on this. Cool. Cool. So you guys have checklists in here then on yours. That's awesome. I had not looked at that. Not sure who did that. I know it wasn't me. But, and required, yes or no. And again, this is your basic, so you're inside the template still, right? So you as an agent, when you create your transactions, you have to decide what's being, or your templates decide what's being accepted or not accepted, and et cetera, and what's important and not important to you. And then your e-sign templates if you wanted to create an e-sign template. All right. Any questions about setting up the template? All right, so we've covered the profile, we've covered the templates. Let's jump into a transaction right quick. If I go over here, I click on the transaction tab. Notice I don't have any transactions in here. I don't have any transactions for myself. So I want to click on new. TXN Tools. TXN Tools is your transaction tools. Right here where it says look up field manager. Look up field manager. If you'll click on that. Lori, what was that field we were talking about just a minute ago? Lori Lee? Do you remember?
It was on the IABS where I go to type in the broker information at the bottom. It just auto populates there.
Okay. So this is because we are on the, so that's that's inside your template then. And that's where that needs to be changed at, because this is on the main one, it has just Remax Elite as the broker.
Now that you just showed us what to do, I'm like mind blown. I can go fix so much stuff.
Yes, ma'am. So right here on the lookup field manager, when I first started teaching ZipForms, this was something I would say go into at the end of each year and clear out the items that you don't want. Because if there's anything in there, like spelling for some of us, I might spell the street name wrong and then realize it's wrong and retype it. But because I've typed it once, it's already there. So I would have a whole string of street names, for example, within a transaction. So what I used to tell agents all the time on this one was go in and change, go in and highlight the area and clear that field out or delete that specific one. I click on cancel this one, but that's in transaction tools, lookup field manager. It's also within the transaction itself, so you can get that. So we've done the profile, the templates. We're going to build a transaction. If I click on new, and because we did a listing pack, I want to stick with a new listing. And I'm going to call this 123 A Street. Now, right here where it has MLS Connect, those of you that belong to the Coastal Bend, you can click on that, and you see how it has CBL MLS, right? I can plug in the MLS ID number, and it will pull the information out of MLS for me. So that I can use it within the transaction. And it's a tool to make it easier for you, because it's going to pull over legal description. Everything they have in MLS is going to pull that over for you. So 123 A Street, I'm going to do residential. Now, when I clicked on residential, Max listing packet popped up down here on the bottom. As soon as I clicked on residential, you see how that went away? If you look down here where it says select my templates, when I click on residential, there's automatically apply, because that's what I clicked on when we set up the template, was automatically apply. And since I clicked on the box before this one, I clicked on listing, the system knows that's supposed to automatically apply there. So this template will automatically apply. Checklist, yes. So when I create the listing packet, when I create this listing, the checklist will automatically apply to it. I click on save.
Mac, I have a question.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
What if it's residential and commercial?
Say what?
Yes, I have a property that's commercial and residential.
So it's mixed use.
Right, there's 8 manufactured homes on the 10 acres.
All right. So you usually go with the highest and best use.
Residential?
No, highest and best is going to be commercial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, are they selling it out separate, or they're putting it all together? Or?
No, it's not sold separate.
It's not?
No, it's the 10 acres and the owner owns all 8 manufactured homes.
Okay.
They don't belong to the tenants.
All right. Yeah, so that would probably need to go commercial then to make that work for you.
Okay, I'll go change that.
So within here, a couple notes. When we covered the profile this morning, set up your profile. Here's the home warranty. So I can request a home warranty on this property. If I click on request it, I have to have all the information in. You notice that pops up, right? You have to have zip code and all that good stuff in there. But if I have this all filled out, I can request it from right here. Again, it's just something to save time. If I have my title company set up, or the title company that I prefer to work with in here, I can go in here and request title order. So all that information, everything goes to the title company right from ZipForm. It makes it so much easier to work with if we do it the right way. This is your main page within a transaction. The main page within a transaction, I know all of you are familiar with that. If I go in here and take a look at it, all these numbers, so everything I fill out here goes over to the transaction. I can fill in all the information I need right here. I don't have to go to the document to do that. If I that's not gonna work. See if it has it in the drop down. Oh, it's not. Let's just do it that way. But this will allow this everything it takes from here, everything you put in here. Everything you put in here will carry over to the documents, is the way it's supposed to work. There's your legal description. You can cut and paste it from the county records and just paste it in here if you wanted to, make it a little easier for you. And if you keep this up to date, it will work as your transaction tracker, right? To see what you have pending, not pending, etc. What's closed. You keep all of this up to date, it works out really well. And that's what I was getting at earlier. Right here at the top, it has prospect, active, pending, closed. So right now, this is an active listing. Once it goes to pending, I just click on pending and it'll do that. Right. And that keeps those numbers on that on the dashboard up to date as well. And then if you close, it's going to ask you for a closing date and the price that it closed at. If it's inactive or it fell through, you can mark that. So this works if everybody was using this the way it's designed to be used, which is basically you do your contracts in here. Every time you create, right? If Michelle created a new listing today, Nina could look at this and say, okay, we've got 3 new listings this weekend. We've got 5 pending for next week. All those numbers are right here. If everybody used this system, makes it so much easier to work with. If all of that was going on. But anyway, we're inside a transaction. We're inside the transaction itself. When we created the transaction, the documents were brought over. So these are, because we use the template, right? You can see right here, we're in 123 A Street. We're not in the template. Because we use the template, the documents came over, the folders came over, everything I need is right here. In the template, I had deleted the lead-based paint folder pamphlet. So it's not here anymore, right? So when you set up your templates, set them up for you. Put everything in the order. Like I said, I set this up based on what I thought would work as far as the flow of forms, like IABS up front, your listing agreement, seller's disclosure, lead-based paint, right? If you're in an area where the addendum for coastal property is more important than other things, put it up here where you can get to it real quick. And remember in the template, we filled out some specific information like my email address. And I put lot 1, remember that was just on the summary page, Harlingen, all that pops in here. This is to save, if you're a new agent, this is to save you time in the long run, because everything you normally do is going to show up. That's the whole idea of using the template. Everything that you would normally do is going to be in here. Like I mark all 5 of these on every residential transaction, unless like doing some of the repos, I could not mark VA or FHA or Texas Veterans Land Board because they wouldn't go with those. But anyway, but my template's set up that way. So I know that I need to just go in and uncheck it for this specific transaction. And that's what it's easier to go through here and take something out than it is to remember to put it in. Because most of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time we're doing this, we're in a hurry. Right? Trying to get it out to somebody pretty quick like. Then all your information comes over as well. Why is that? Oh, it's up here this And see this drop down, that's what I was talking about when I went to the clear. I'm showing you the box earlier where you can clear out the names. So you can clear those out. But if you do the drop down, the names and everything should already be there if you've ever used them before. And then they'll auto populate down to the bottom for you. You can click on save if you want to, and then go back and fill out the rest of the information for the rest of the forms. Now that's inside the transaction. Inside the transaction. Anybody have any other questions there? All right. A couple little notes on this. Right here where it has the disclosure, this is Seller Shield. Some of you in Corpus are using this, but not everybody. Seller Shield will allow you to have you send this to the seller, right? You create a login and all this good stuff for it. This will go to the seller and they fill out the seller, instead of doing our seller's disclosure notice right here, they will actually do one with Seller Shield. It's free. However, they do have an option of taking the insurance on it, which I think runs about $200. And that will insure them should a buyer say they didn't disclose something that should have been on the seller's disclosure, because Seller Shield has that filled out, has that set up so that whenever the seller fills it out, if they click on a box like, do you have current insurance? Then the 1414 form's needed. So if I go into Seller Shield and I mark yes, that form's going to auto-populate and the seller's going to have to fill it out. So everything's going to be provided through that system that's needed. Seller Shield is an awesome tool to use if you want to get in and use it. You're inside the transaction. You have all your documents in here. You're ready to go with it. And again, there's your checklist. Your checklist should pop up. But if you're not using the checklist, if you're not paying attention to it, it may not be of any use to you. But you can use it and probably should in the long run, the more familiar we get with it. One of the couple notes here on this. If you're inside a transaction and I need to submit this for approval, right here's where I can submit for review. And if I click on submit for review, what it's going to do is send me the entire transaction, which is okay if you set the folders up, because when I get it, what it's going to say is 123 A Street needs to be reviewed. And what I do when I open it up is I'll go to the funding folder to see what's in there. If you're not doing that, you can do it by documents. So let's say I wanted to send this document for review. If I'm inside the transaction, I can submit that for review by clicking on the little button up here at the top, and it's only going to submit that document. And with new agents, a lot of the new agents are doing that, especially here in the Lower Valley. They'll send me I'll get their information about brokerage services and a listing agreement before they go out to talk to somebody, or the IABS and a buyer rep agreement before they go out to talk to somebody, which is okay. But if you're meeting with that client today and you submit it right now, shoot me a text and let me know so I can try to jump in there and get that taken care of. And sometimes if I'm in a class someplace, I may not be able to do that. But usually I have it on my phone. I have the old school app on my phone, so I have access to this stuff there as well. So I can try to get that taken care of. If you're inside the transaction, again, you also have the opportunity to click on history as well. So for example, here's what's happening right now for Corpus Christi. Since the majority of you are with Corpus, I do this with Corpus Christi and I'm doing it with Mission and Harlingen. South Padre Island, we haven't started it yet, but if you're through with the transaction, you would have your funding form in here. And by the way, the funding form is not in the template. So I come over here to all forms and I do a drop down to Corpus Christi. Here's the funding form. So I add that to the transaction. Notice of fee. If I'm doing a buyer, I can add that to the transaction if I was doing the buyer side of it. When you add them, they're going to show up at the bottom. So then on this funding form, once it's filled out, you submit it for review. And then along with the transaction, when I take a look at the transaction, if the funding form is in there, I click, once I've approved everything, I'll click on send, hit email. Did you guys see the box that just popped up? Anybody? Is anybody home? Listen, you see the box on there? Just you nod. Yes? No? Okay, Michelle, thanks. I click on ZipForm. I click on carry, done, and I'll enter your first name, for example, and 123 A Street, whatever the address is, and click on send, and I send this funding form straight over to Carrie from the transaction. I did the same thing with the Mission and Harlingen offices so that we can, it makes it easier, I think, for them in the long run, because they know the file's been checked. They know it's good to go. So that makes it, should, once we get more accustomed to it, should make things roll along a whole lot smoother with some of the funding aspects of it. If there's a problem someplace, I might send something back to you and say, hey, I don't expect you to fix this. However, in the future, do this. Or I might say this, absolutely, like one of them yesterday, was missing the lead-based paint addendum wasn't filled out correctly. And I sent it to the agent and let them know that the lead-based paint addendum needs to be corrected, but I've already submitted the funding form, so please get that to me. And I had it first thing this morning. Again, once you are through with the transaction, this is a listing. This was a listing, right? There's some little things I wanted to make sure that I touch base with you on. And one of those is within this, when we started, we did the profile. And in the profile, I mentioned doc inbox. So I want to go back to the dashboard right here. On the dashboard, you see how I now have one active transaction in here, right? On the dashboard, see where it says doc inbox right there? This doc inbox email address that's right here is yours. That's your email address for your doc inbox. And I've said it in the past, I'm absolutely 100% positive about this. If I was actively working transactions today, that would be my MLS email address. And the reason for that is so that when agents send me stuff, it comes right into this file right here. It'll come right in here. If they email to that address, I'm going to get it in my doc inbox, which is right here. If you email me a document, if the title company emails me a document, it's all going to come right here. And then from here, I can sort it out. I could click on a document. If I had a document in here, I could click on it and I could send it to the transaction. And instead of you sending it to AOL or Yahoo or whatever it is, or Gmail, it's going to come right into ZipForms, which I think is so important as we're working with this. That's your doc inbox.
Matt, can you show me again how you added the email? Like
You
how
don't-
you added?
Sure. If you go just from the dashboard, if you'll go to doc inbox, go to documents,
Right.
that email is automatically there.
Oh, so I don't have to go and insert it.
No.
Okay.
You add it to your MLS is what I was getting at. I would make that my primary email for MLS is what I would do.
Oh, okay, got it. Thanks.
So the other part on the doc inbox, if you'll just bear with me just for a second, On the transaction side, if I'm inside this transaction, every transaction has its own email address. Once again, every transaction has its own email address. So to get that, I'm going to go right here where it says email to the transaction. I'm going to click on that. And here's the email address I would use for this property in MLS. In the agent remarks, submit all offers to this email address. You guys have seen that where people have it. Usually it's to their assistant or somebody, right? Submit all offers to this email address. If they email, if you were to email right now to this email address, if you were to email to it, whoops, it's going to come in here and I'll get it. It'll show up right down here on the bottom of my transaction. And that's why I say, put it in MLS, put it in agent remarks, email all offers to this. So back on the profile, when we're working on the profile at the very beginning, I'd mentioned the fact that on settings, where's it? Notifications, there you go. On notifications, you want doc inbox. So if, let's say Lucy writes up an offer on one of my listings and she sends it to that doc inbox email for that specific property, then I'm going to get notified via email that, hey, you have a new document in 123A Streets file. Or if I get an email to just doc inbox, because I have that set up on my MLS, I'll get an email, you have a new document in your doc inbox. And so you're still on top of it. You know what's going on, but everything's coming right into the file or right into ZipForm instead of me having to take it from Yahoo or AOL or Gmail or whatever and upload it. And everything is right there. And so easy to work with because it's inside the system. Anybody have any questions there? All right, so the one last little thing on here I want to do with you today, and this being the new agent training, we've covered a lot of information that also goes on the advanced side. If I'm submitting a document for e-signature, I just click on the little pin here, right? And then click on new, and it'll allow me to select which documents I want to send. If I want to send, let's say the listing agreement, right? Oh, and by the way, right here at the top, it says add external documents. Some agents will actually submit like inspections or surveys or other documents to sellers or buyers and have them just acknowledge they're in the file if they haven't seen them personally. But let's say I want to send this. So I pull the form up. I just click on next. And then where's it going to go? I want to make sure that I highlight that. I want it to go to me. I want it to go to buyer one, or this is a listing, I'm sorry. Seller one. There we go. Once you have it all filled out, then it will allow you to highlight it on the left-hand side. You click on close, click on next, and all I have on here is the listing agreement. Before I click on next, let me do this real quick. Right here, the signing order. On the signing order, if that box is marked, then one has to sign before two can sign. One has to sign before two can sign. If I uncheck that, there is no signing order. And I have to tell you, to me, that's one of the better things they've added to ZipForms is by fixing that. Because a lot of times when we email things out, I've emailed stuff out to the husband, for example, who's a truck driver. The wife sent it home. I sent it to him. She said he's stopped. He'll actually get it signed and then I'll sign it. So I sent it in that order. He forgot to do it. Right. So then she can't access it until he does it. And now he's back on the road. He's not going to be stopping for a while. So by taking that signing order off, you eliminate that possible problem. Click on next. I would not use any extra security on this. Set up enough. When you click on next, it's going to take you over to the document and you have choices here where you can set things up. Items that are supposed to be done are automatically filled out for you, right? So the buyers and sellers information is already in here. So I can work with that and they can go from there. If I needed to add something to it, I could. They have a drop and drag. They have a markup. And by the way, you're not supposed to mark up promulgated contracts. You're not supposed to do that. If it's a PDF, the system will probably allow it most of the time. But let's say I wanted to mark this one up just for an example. I want to draw a line. I can come over here and draw a line across swimming pools, for example. And that'll stay on there. You can highlight things. I want to draw their attention to the fact that, you know, you should consult an attorney, right? So now that's highlighted for them. Or anything else you need to do on here. If I need to add some text to it, I just click on it and I can add a text box here. You know, whatever you want to do with it. And then notice that on the top right, it has HD McFarland. So that's the one that's going on here. That's the one that's going to be responsible for seeing this, not the other one. So let's go over to Jane, right? She'll still see this, but she's not going to have any action to it. It has to be acknowledged by this one. So whatever signer you have at the top, once you're through with all that, and there's other options you can do with this as well, click on next. And it's gone, right? Now, once that's been signed, once that's been sent out, you can come back and open it up if you want to and check it out or do whatever you need to do with it as well. One of the things I did not do and should have done is when we set this up, I had myself and her on there, both of us the same, correct? If this was a contract, I could have put a text message, a text box over the effective date and set it up on mine so that I could put that effective date in there. Depending on how you have it set up. If I had forgotten something, I can add a document to this that'll go out as well with it. Okay, so it's already been finalized. So you're gonna have to start that one all over. All right, any questions about what we've covered today?
Mac, Guadalupe here from Portland. Can you repeat what you said about the effective date?
So on a transaction,
Yeah.
when I send out the 1 to 4 family contract, let me see if I can do one real quick on here just to show you. When you open up the 1 to 4 family contract, what it should allow you to do, let's say I want to send it out to the buyer. I want to send it, I'm going to email it out to the buyer. It's going to go out to them and then come back to me. So on those electronic signatures, I want to put I would probably put the buyer first, right? And then have it coming back to me. Depending on who you're working with and how you're doing this, if you and I were working together, for example, what I do is I'd say, I'm going to email it to you, but what I'd like to do is email it to your client as well, so that nothing has to be done. That sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on what kind of an offer it is. But you can go to them and then set it up so that it comes back to you. So that you can put the effective date on there. If it's a PDF, let's say I send it to you and you print it, you take it over and you have it hand signed and all that good stuff. You scan it back in, you email it back to me. Then what I can do is I can set it up as an e-signature. I can set it up as an e-signature and send it to myself. And then I can go in and plug in the effective date on here with that text box. Which is, again, that's one of the reasons why I like using the doc inbox. Everything comes straight into ZipForms. I don't have to mess with it. So as soon as I get it, we have an agreement. They didn't put the effective date on there. I can real quick and get it over with. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Don't you have to have a signature though before you can do a text box? So if it comes back to me, it's do I have to sign it? Thinking.
If it's yeah, you have to have, I believe you have to have some kind of activity on there, but the text on a PDF, I'd have to check the PDF. On the PDF, you were able to, unless they've changed this, you were able to just put a text box on it if it was just a PDF. If it wasn't, if it's an actual form being signed and initialed, where it comes in with all their documents, all their initials already in the boxes, right? Or if it comes in like that through the system, like that listening agreement just did, if it comes in like that, then it's not going to allow you to, probably will not allow you to do anything extra to it if it's a promulgated form. But if it's a PDF, I believe you can still add the text box to it.
Gotcha. Okay,
If
thanks.
not, if not, one of the other things I've used is PDF annotator. It allows me to open it up and then I can throw it on there from there real quick. So I've used different systems with this. I've used HelloSign years ago. That's back when we had to sign. I mean, that's back when we had to pay for electronic signatures. So I used HelloSign to do all that stuff as well. All right. Anybody have any questions over anything we've covered? All right. So profile templates, if you're a new agent, make sure your templates are set up. Make sure I'm going to go in and delete this one so you guys don't mess with that one. And I want to check the buyer's package for everybody real quick. Just real quick. All right, so again, on the buyer package, everything is in order. Buyer tenant rep. One of the benefits of using, yeah, sorry, Max Elite shows up. Okay. One of the benefits of using the templates within ZipForm, if forms change, these templates right here that you're looking at will automatically get updated. Automatically. We don't have to do anything. If Trek changes a contract, these templates and the forms in ZipForm will automatically be updated, except the ones you've used. So if I had my own template here and I had used it in a transaction, it's not going to go into that transaction and make a change to that form. And in fact, that's one of the, just recently, there was an agent from Mission who submitted a transaction for review, and he had the old contract form. And the reason for it was it's an investor that he's working with. So he just went to his template that he had set up for the investor and filled everything out. But because you've used it, it won't allow the new contracts to come into it, right? So you have to manually do that every time that happens. And every time that comes up, I'll bring that up again to make sure that everybody's aware of it. But anybody have any other questions or comments? If you need help with ZipForms, it's hard to get help from them, but there's a ton of videos on YouTube, and there's also underneath their help, they also have videos there that you can take a look at, or you can reach out to me. I'll do anything I can to help you with it as well. And we have our videos on YouTube, which is where this one will be later on today. Anybody have any questions or comments?